I'm truly honored to facilitate this panel today, surrounded by such an impressive group of leaders who are making sustainability a real and measurable part of their credit union's DNA. So I've already been introduced. I'm Marie-Josée, and what do we do at the Conseil québécois de la coopération et de la mutualité? Just a few words. Our mission is to promote, support, and strengthen the cooperative and mutual movement here in Quebec, which now includes more than 8.8 million members in Quebec alone. Thank you, Desjardins Group, of course. But not only because of the Desjardins Group, cooperatives in Quebec are in different activity sectors. So they are in the health sector, agri-food, forestry, and also housing. So yeah, and I'll probably have the opportunity to talk to you a little bit more about the Quebec cooperative movement this evening. So, bringing us back to today's discussion, we will be focusing on how we can bring green solutions and sustainable products to market, while also engaging with members and building long-term resilience in our organization. So let me begin by introducing our lovely panel today. So we have Eric Darmanin, Chief Revenue Officer at the United Nations Federal Credit Union. He's with Jamie O'Donnell, and he's the head of product solutions marketing, also at UNFCU. We also have Dan LeFree, president of Green Lending Operations at Harborstone Credit Union in Lakewood, Washington, and our lovely lady, Laurie Fielder, vice president of Green Lending at Eastrise Federal Credit Union based in Vermont. So hello, everyone. You guys ready?
Hello, thank you.
Yeah?
We're ready.
All right, so if we're ready, let's get started. So in a few words, what are your expectations for this conversation this afternoon? So what do you hope our audience will take away from the conversation? Anyone wants to jump in? Laurie.
Yeah, I hope everybody, kind of engages and asks questions and this is an area that we feel really passionate about at Eastrise. We've done a lot of work in this area. We've made mistakes in this area, and we continue to learn and iterate on what those are. And I also hope we hear from you. What kinds of things are others out there doing, especially around partnerships and building relationships in a time where it can be a little bit challenging, but there's also tons of opportunity.
Maybe, yeah, sure.
I'd be happy to go. I recently came from a much smaller credit union than we typically see here represented today. Recently had a merger with Harborstone Credit Union. My credit union, of which I was the president and CEO, was called Community First. We were about 200 million in size in Western Washington, and we feel like we distinguished ourselves in having a green lending program, and so that was very attractive to Harborstone as well as several other credit unions. It put us in a position where we could choose our merger partner, which we really wanted to have because we wanted to grow and do more good for our community. So what I'm hoping to do, or hoping that maybe we can get from this meeting today, is some insights that might encourage smaller credit unions to embrace green lending and other climate-centric products and services.
Yeah, because we feel that there's already a leadership, but now it's more how can we do more and how can we engage more? Jamie, what would you like everyone to take away?
Yeah, I would say, Marie, I hope the audience walks away with a clear understanding of how brand and product marketing, they work in concert to really drive positive, sustainable outcomes throughout all stakeholders of the institution, not only internal, but also external.
Yeah. And Eric, maybe a few words?
Yeah, thanks, Marie-Josée. I have to say, just listening this morning to all the panel discussions and what everybody had to say, I'm already very impressed with how committed everybody is to sustainability and what's being done. As far as this session is concerned, where we talk about bringing products to market, what I found was that this morning's sessions, in some areas, offered nice strategy concepts, also some tactical what you can take away tomorrow. And I'm hoping that we deliver that here today as well, so that perhaps it could be some thought stimulation to bring up some additional discussion, and perhaps even more discussion that we could have at some of the sessions today. But most importantly, what can I do tomorrow?
All right, so let's start. So just a little bit of context here. Climate change, rising costs, and evolving and changing member expectations are pushing all of us to rethink how we operate and how we can be both profitable but also purposeful. So from all of your perspective, what are the key challenges and opportunities facing credit unions in 2025 when it comes to sustainability and innovation? Maybe Eric?
Sure. Yeah, glad to take it. Thank you. So we live in interesting times. We talked this morning that we're operating in a time of changing political environment, social environment. But when you look at where we are today in the entire cycle, consider that the concept of sustainability is not so new as what we think has been done in the last 15 to 20 years. Consider that, at least within the United States anyway, I don't know Canadian laws, but that the Equal Rights Act was passed in the 1960s. The Environmental Protection Agency was created in the 1960s. The first hybrid vehicle came to market over 30 years ago. Solar panels started being installed on houses in the 70s. And so I guess my point is that there has been a trend of growing sustainability commitment over the course of many, many years. And I think we need to think of this as perhaps a bump in the road. So when we look at the challenges and opportunities we have, the challenges are clearly changes going on and the uncertainty that comes with that change. But as with any change, change often offers opportunity. And as credit unions, I think we're poised to be able to take advantage of this opportunity, A, because we know our members, and B, when we talk about the challenges of competing with big banks because of the resources they have, think back to the culture discussion we had. In many ways, culture is also about how you get things done. And large organizations often just trip over themselves. Because of bureaucracy, they can't get things done. And we can take advantage of this opportunity in knowing what our members are looking for and experimenting, trying to find ways to deliver products to them that we feel intuitively work, and then adapt over time.
And I see Dan nodding here.
For us, we saw solar and energy storage as a fantastic opportunity, again, to differentiate our small credit union from others. We're located in a very, very densely populated area in Western Washington State. Many different financial institution opportunities. All the big banks are there, large credit unions are there, and so a smaller credit union who initially had a very restricted field of membership, but it had access to that membership through union meetings and things like that, decided to become a community credit union and to somewhat distance ourselves unintentionally from our original field of membership. And so competing with the big banks and the bigger credit unions was very, very difficult. So for us, green lending was something that was different and it was interesting, and we felt was going to be very very purposeful and very engaging with younger new members. Again, because we distanced ourselves from our original field of membership and became a community credit union, we began relying very heavily on indirect lending. And so, as many of you might have had the experience as well, through indirect lending, the car dealer is the one who really arranges the financing, and if you have the right rate and if you pay a good dealer fee to the dealer, you'll get the loan. But it's really, really hard to engage the member. They're there just because you had the best loan at the time, and then they're making their payments to you, but that's about it. And so adding green lending to us we thought would be interesting. I'll share just a quick story if that's okay. So we'd already made the decision to move forward to a degree and test things out. And one day I went over to my daughter's place, and I knew that both she and I really love dark chocolate. And so I brought this dark chocolate bar with me. And I won't mention the name of the brand, but it's really, really ultra dark chocolate at 85%. And you know it's good because it's got like gold lettering on the label, and it's got a French, probably a Swiss French chocolatier who is like, you know, really carefully putting the chocolate on there. So it's, you know, it's good. And so I brought it over, I put it on the table, and she said, "Oh, thanks, Dad." And so we chatted and we had a nice time together. And then like 3 weeks later, I came back to visit her at her home, and the chocolate bar was still on the table. And I said, "So, did you not like the chocolate?" And she says, "Well, I do like dark chocolate, Dad, but that company doesn't embrace my values. It doesn't do things in the ethical way that I like to see them done. And so, no, I didn't eat any of it." And I said, "Well, what do you still like dark chocolate?" And she says, "Yes, I do." And I said, "So what brand do you choose?" And so she showed me a brand. Again, I won't mention the name, but it's a brand that at that time was made in Seattle and had all these little stamps on it. You know, like first, I mean, it was certainly kosher, but it also had you know, fair trade and non-GMO and just all these different special little labels that indicated the values that company embraces. And plus, she had done research on the company to see that they actually did the things that they say that they do. And so for me, it was a real eye-opener. And we've talked about it earlier today, and it's been mentioned at least in two or three other sessions. But millennials and Gen Zs do their research. They know what they want. They want to do work. They want to do business with those who share their values. And so that story was something really important for me to share with my board when we entered this new line of business. And it helped them to come to the decision that, yes, maybe this is something that we really need to do to become more relevant in this very, very competitive marketplace.
You're absolutely right. And the new generation embrace those values. And in the Quebec cooperative movement, we see it as well. They choose places where they're going to work that, you know, according to their own values, their opinions, and that's the advantage we have as cooperatives, but also as credit unions. And I'm just wondering, Jamie, when you bring that product to market or in terms of marketing, and I'm guessing that this is an opportunity for smaller credit unions that they are closer to their membership, closer to their members, know them maybe more personally. Is that like an opportunity that you?
Yeah, it definitely is. I think personalized messaging to that group, communicating what the values are, the unwavering commitment the brand has to those values, and messaging through product, enabling the, you know, whatever the life event is the individual might be going through, and offer the product that can satisfy that life event, I think is critical. I also feel, especially with the younger audiences, you know, one challenge credit unions have today is technology. You know, we have these legacy technology infrastructures and tech stacks we're working with. So to be able to offer a fully seamless end-to-end digital experience that's exceptional for end users, we need to do that. And we need to do that yesterday. To be able to retain young audiences, generate more interest for the brand, we have to offer exceptional end-to-end technology digital experiences. And that's not just with the mobile device. That's, you know, tablet, laptop, PC, mobile, across the board. And I think we have an opportunity there to improve that.
And just maybe in closing, Laurie, on opportunities and challenges broadly.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we're different than Dan's program. We're pretty mature in that we've had an established program for 20 years. So, what I took away from this morning's conversation is sometimes what happens when you've been doing things a long time is you say, well, we've always done this way. And I think that's really the challenge for those credit unions that may already be invested in a program like green lending, where you've had a green, a EV loan or a green vehicle loan or a solar loan, or an energy improvement loan, and you might just rest on that and not be eyes wide open to the fact that times change, technology changes, even political environment changes, as we know, and you need to be prepared to be nimble and agile and shift when you need to. So whenever something like, oh, well, now the investment tax credit is terminated at the end of the year, can that disrupt your whole business? No. You have to keep innovating and thinking about, well, what other opportunities lie in front of us? And for us, it was maybe simple little innovations like, well, wait a minute, one of the things we should really be including is roofing and siding. That's a climate resilience investment. Vermont's experienced a lot of flooding in the last few years, so we've really embraced that part of the business that maybe 5 years ago we wouldn't have thought about. So it is about maybe shifting gears a little bit and not just saying, well, we've always done this, and this is the way it should be going forward. Just like another panelist said this morning, if it's yesterday, it's already getting old, And that is the challenge of green lending. It is always going to be adapting and changing, which is good, gives you opportunity, but it does challenge, a financial organization that tends to be risk adverse, just naturally.
Yeah, and to grab those opportunities, you need to adapt fast, right? Right, but fast. And Dan, you mentioned that green lending was a major factor in the merger that formed Harborstone Credit Union. So could you share how this came about, but more so how sustainability became a lever for growth and alignment?
Yeah, happy to do that. So I might have misspoken earlier. So Harborstone Credit Union was actually in existence before the merger. And at the time of the merger, and again, I was, just to backpedal just a little bit, we chose Harborstone to be our merger partner for multiple reasons. But one key reason was their leader, Jeff Bullock. So Jeff has distinguished himself in the industry as someone who's very, very innovative. Over the past 16 months, they've had 2 bank acquisitions, and then our merger, which took place at the beginning of last month. So Harborstone was there before, but we were very attractive to Harborstone because of green lending. That's something that they wanted to add to their matrix of the good things that they were doing. And it's so much easier to take a program that's already up and running and working and add that to your matrix rather than to start it from scratch. So that was very interesting for them, and we felt like they had, because of their size, a lot of resources that would help us to do more good.
And at Eastside, you've also had a merger. So how did it, and you're close to the communities, so how did it help you have more impact on maybe new communities in Vermont and broader than?
Right, I mean, that's great. I'm glad you added the broader. So, Vermont, we like to think of it's kind of like a small town, like the whole state, because there's only 600,000 people in the whole state. So you have to understand there's already going to be a challenge of scale. So we knew that in order, it was a while back in 2017, we expanded our field of membership. to include members of Northeast Sustainable Energy Association. So we formed a partnership with them, and members of that organization could join the credit union. And that allowed us at that time to move with our current existing vendor partners. They had already seen the writing on the wall. They needed to expand their solar businesses outside of Vermont. So they were opening offices in New York and in New Hampshire. And they were saying to us, can't you come with us? And until we made that change, we really couldn't. So we did get that through when we were Vermont State Employees Credit Union back in, I believe it was 2017. And that really was a catalyst for us to realize that we could scale the program. We had to make some changes, and we had to make a few things more consistent, guidelines and sort of the way we ran the program, but that's how we did that. When we merged and then integrated with New England Federal Credit Union, which was the other partner, that it was challenging. They had been in Vermont, their footprint was Vermont only, whereas already VSCCU's footprint was beyond Vermont. But they were the larger organization. We were like $1 billion in assets, and they were $2 billion in assets. So they didn't have a green lending program. And as I recall, they had tried to start one, and it just wasn't successful. And I'm not really sure if that was just because they weren't, I'm not really sure what that was about. There were a few loans that carried over on the books, but most of it was from VSCCU. So when we combined, it was more a matter of, in a merger, there's always two of everything, but there wasn't in this case. So we could pretty much keep moving without all that work of doing that integration and conversion. And we still had to do a conversion, but it was a lot different because we kept doing that work. And as soon as we were able to, we expanded and added an employee to help us with business development. And that's when we could really scale. And we've been scaling ever since and going, not just in the Northeast, but, even testing the waters beyond that. That being said, scaling is complicated because you quickly get over your skis, if you like that analogy for Vermont. That is a complicated thing to do because then you don't know your member in your area as well. So you have to be strategic and look to fill gaps. Don't get too far out until you have a little more experience. And that's helped us. And we've had times that we needed to kind of pull back and say, okay, we're just going to stay in this area or work in this type of loan. And I think that going forward, we'll continue that strategy of, kind of testing the waters. And I think Dan said that well, test, experiment, see what looks like it's going to be workable. And it's always impact over activity, right? Like what's going to get you the most bang for your buck without, putting in millions of hours of putting boots on the ground in an area that may not work out. You have to do the research up front.
And in that context of the merger, I'm guessing that distinction, what you had, probably gave you, like, not an upper end, but I mean a certain advantage, or they were more like on the same level because you were maybe a bit smaller, as you explained, so that gave you a certain advantage, or I'm guessing?
Yeah, I would say what it does is all of a sudden we realized we have like a compliance department. It wasn't just one person that did compliance and audit and whatever, that we had a department. And we had, more people that were in loan servicing, and more people that were in asset recovery. So that, that in and of itself gives you the ability to scale, just having more people. The challenge, of course, is educating all those people, because they don't, these people are not, people that are coming into the organization that does this work. This is a unique type of lending, and Dan can probably, this is probably true in his area too, although he's on the other side of the country. just getting everybody kind of up to speed on what is the normal process for a green, especially a solar loan, that you might get the application and it might get an approval and then it sits for 6 weeks while they're going through the permitting process, and then there's, you have to collect a little more documentation around their home ownership and their deed and that kind of thing. Then you get to closing. So it's more like a construction loan. And that's something you have to fully train up your new staff on how to do it. So there is still work to be done. But once you get there, you have just so much more room to do more.
Thank you, Laurie. And Eric, UNFCU, so you have a truly global membership. I'd like to know what's a global membership and how do you deliver on your commitment to sustainability while meeting such diverse member needs around the world?
So yes, we
global
are
membership,
truly global.
Really? Okay.
So for those of you who don't, well, first of all, obviously we're the credit union serving United Nations employees, but consider that the United Nations itself is global.
Wow.
We have about 240,000 members, but consider that 2/3 of them aren't in the United States. So we've got about 160,000 outside the United States, 80,000 within the United States, and so for that reason, when we talk about delivering on products, very similar to what Laurie and Dan were just saying about being willing to experiment and try different things, we know that there is no one-size-fits-all solution, so we've tried different things over the years. Some more popular or more productive and accepted than others. So it comes down to as simple in some cases as just offering a discount on an automobile loan if it's an electric or hybrid vehicle, to as complicated as some of our efficient home buyer mortgages where they have to prove lead certification, et cetera. And I have to say, the simpler is the more popular program than the more complex. But that doesn't mean we're not trying to learn. So, but generally speaking, we try to tailor somewhat to markets, but that's difficult because our markets are throughout the entire world. It's not like we're trying to target one county to the other.
So that's one of the challenges.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is absolutely a challenge. So yeah, that's what we deal with.
And any other challenges that you've faced and how you address them?
Yeah, so I would say that our product strategy, if you had to, conceptualize our approach, I like to say that we think globally, act locally. So as far as global is concerned, we try to create products that could be used anywhere, but then again, some would be very targeted. Like the mortgages, they're just the United States, but then we also offer mortgages in Kenya, we offer mortgages in Uganda, they're very different. We can't offer mortgages throughout the world because we can't set up a process of being able to create mortgage documents and recording mortgages and dealing with county clerks as we do here. So we focus more so on the areas where the United Nations has a very large presence. The other thing we do is that we see ourselves, because of our commitment to sustainability, that we're not just serving our members, but we like to serve cooperatives as a whole. In order just to be able to invest in profitable assets, we've bought participation loans over the years. However, I will say that when it comes to green loans, like solar panel loans, we look at those more favorably, as we would if we're buying a pool of auto loans. We're obviously looking at the profitability, whether or not we get the yield we want, the credit terms we want, and we do the same when we buy solar loans, but when we look at solar loans, we look at them a bit more favorably. Because as we see it, we're not just buying an investment to fuel our portfolio appetite, but we're also helping to bring liquidity to the market. That if there's a smaller credit union out there that is capable of serving their local market that we can't, that by buying their loans, we're opening capacity for them to be able to originate more of those loans.
Okay, and then when we transfer that into marketing strategy, Jamie, how do you make sure that the incentives or the strategy truly reflects the mission and culture of your organization?
Yeah, I would say that's a combination of brand messaging and product marketing. So ultimately, the brand is who we are and what we do, and that tells the story through our mission, serving the people who serve the world, the vision for the institution, which is to become the primary financial institution for our membership, and most importantly, our commitment to our core values. One of our core values is practicing sustainability. And how we deliver on those values and how we deliver on the mission, how we hope to achieve the vision is really through product marketing. And product marketing is ensuring we have the right mix of product, solutions, incentives, and going into the marketplace with impactful storytelling. We recently did an impact campaign, and I believe it was playing, I'm not sure if we can play it again now, where the messaging really pulled in not just the brand traits and the brand identity, but it also spoke at the individual product level and how our products do good collectively as a collective purpose. And we told that story through multiple channels: paid, earned, owned media, social media, and the engagement was terrific. I mean, we had a lot of likes on our social media channels, a lot of new community followers for the brand. And most importantly, you know, we had interest in the product. People actually applied for the products that we were promoting through the impact campaign.
All right, and now, so we haven't talked about your boards yet. So I'm guessing that we need leadership also from the board, and we'll get back to Laurie on partnerships as well. But Dan, gaining board and senior leadership buy-in is probably crucial for any new initiative. So how did that support develop in your former credit union, and how is it evolving at Harborstone?
So at Harborstone, I'll have to maybe defer on that because I'm still a new person there. But I did have some connection with the board before our merger, and I can share that. So for a small credit union, especially an older one, it's not unusual to have board members who have been on the board for many years. And many of them have ideas about how a credit union should be run because that's the way it was run when they first became members of the credit union, maybe 20, 30 or more years ago. With all of the changes that we've seen in technology, cybersecurity, expectations as far as user experience, we knew we had to make some major changes. So one of the things that I like to do, especially when we're taking on a new initiative that we as a senior management team, we just know this is where we need to be. We've met with outside providers, other credit unions. We feel like we have a very, very good read of the market and where things need to be. And so what I do is I meet with each board member one by one. And so rather than having them in a group, which can sometimes turn into kind of what used to be called groupthink, where just one or two kind of really strong leaders tend to sway an idea this way or that, I really want to hear the voice and the concerns of each board member. And so I met with each of the board members, talked with them, understood what their questions might be. We had a couple of board members who were actually very thoughtful, but never really felt like their voice was heard and once a board came together. And we're really grateful that when we did come together, I could basically share with everybody, I've met with each of you, this is what I've explained to you, and this is what I heard back from you. I didn't attribute it to any of the individuals, I attributed it to the whole board. And so everybody had, at that point, an equal voice, and they came to a unified decision to move forward. We really felt that we needed to do something very, very different than what we were doing in the past.
And do you think that they see it as a real strategic advantage, or we're not there yet and we're more still on, we're just reaching our social goal? You know, like, do they really see it as it's a way to diversify products, or really as a strategic purpose?
Yeah, it was very, very strategic. So we basically discontinued our indirect lending program. We ended up at the time the merger took place, the beginning of last month, we were probably 92% in green loans. 92% of our lending was in green loans. So including mostly solar and energy storage, but also a significant number of HVAC and geothermal and other types of loans that could be labeled as green loans.
All right, so getting those leaders on board, and then I'm guessing that partnerships are important, Laurie.
Yeah, we really depend on partnerships. We've learned over the years that doing a lot of super direct marketing to members, it's not that it doesn't reinforce that we're there, but they come to us when they need us. So many times what'll happen is their heating system will break down, or they'll finally realize that their electric bill has, the rates have gone up enough so that they start thinking about a renewable energy source. Like maybe this is the time to do this. So just being in front of them for that moment when they do need to access affordable financing for that type of investment is really key. So we learned that, and we learned this really right away. The whole program began because we were getting inquiries from Efficiency Vermont, which is our efficiency utility in the state of Vermont, to do partner programs with them. We were hearing from solar companies that wanted their own special loan. And we were hearing from all kinds of different weatherization companies, our CAP agencies, which is Community Action Program, for market rate type of loan programs that were above and beyond the free weatherization program. So we kind of came to the idea that it needed to be a suite of loans that had consistency, that any of these people could utilize, any of these companies. And when that happened, we also, it became really clear that we needed to become a informational and educational component for them. So they look to us to be able to explain to their customers, here's what we can do for you. A consumer loan's not going to work. An equity loan will work for you, and we have a discounted rate, fixed rate home equity loan that would be great for this project, and you qualify for it. It's the best choice for you. So really being more of that resource. And so it's sort of a symbiotic relationship where we work with them to understand what the market challenges are, and then they work with us to send their borrowers or their customers to us. So then they become mutual customers and members. So over the years, those got to be more, we became more sophisticated in managing those partnerships, understanding really what the guidelines, the guardrails are. You can't just let them do whatever they want. They turn out to be like, indirect program, car companies if you do that. But giving them guidance, but also a shared sense of responsibility that these people are going to come back to us. They're our members, so we expect you to treat them well and make sure that they understand what our expectations are, what your expectations are, and then really any kind of really more developed partnership, we would have those shared trainings, and this is what we say, this is what we don't say. You can't have triggering terms on your website. Please don't do that. I heard you said this to a borrower. You can't do that. So it's work. It's not like it just, these people have turnover in their businesses. Solar companies and HVAC companies and weatherization companies are just like all of us, right? They have turnover. So you have to keep doing these trainings. You may say, well, we just did a training for them like 8 months ago. It's like, yep, well, they've got 3 new people. You can't, those 3 new people are 3 new voices talking about the credit union's financing. And we don't want them to talk too much about it, just a little bit. So the partnerships have been instrumental in that impact over activity strategy that we have, or really it's a tactic, right? We don't need to be doing all this individual marketing. We just need to have it embedded in our brand. And then, we are able to attract those market players. And then there's a sense of, kind of believability. Just like we talked about this morning, people will sniff it out if there's not authenticity in this messaging. So we really want to be, consistent with those relationships that we have. And I'm not saying we do it right every day, all the time, because it's continued work, but it does seem to be a usable and even scalable strategy that brings a lot of success for us.
So partnerships that create value, and also to develop the importance to develop a relationship based on trust also, I'm guessing a lot.
Yes.
To, in the end, send out a message that's authentic and that the member will be happily, will want to,
And hopefully build their wallet share with us
For sure.
in the end.
For
We
sure.
don't want them just to have one product with us. We want them to come back to us for their money market account. We have a green money market account. We have a great checking plus account that we just developed. We want them to continue to utilize the credit union's products and services to help them achieve their sustainable financial future, which really is our mission. And we also really want to have that. We don't want to be like Mosaic. A lot of these companies that we're working with now, the solar companies, feel they're a little burned, right? Because they might have been utilizing somebody like that, didn't work out, and now some of their customers are calling them about what's going to happen to my solar loan with Mosaic or with another company or whoever it is. We don't want to be that organization, so we work really hard to maintain that trust and long-term sustainable relationship, both with whoever's out there in the market and our member. And that being said, that's challenging when you start to scale beyond your locality. I can't even imagine what it's like to do this globally.
I can tell you what it's like
It's
to do it
very
in 48 states.
It's very challenging.
Well, let's go globally with Eric. So,
Good segue. Thanks.
so how do you measure the impact and performance of your sustainable products?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take that. And then I'm going to pass over to Jamie afterwards. I'll get started because Jamie has some really good metrics that he tracks as far as the success of our campaigns. But as an organization, we take a balanced scorecard approach. And like many organizations that follow a balanced scorecard, we follow member engagement, we follow financial results, but included within our balanced scorecard, we also include sustainability, including the tracking of sustainable products. So for instance, we'll look each year, I mentioned some of our sustainable lending products. I didn't mention that we also have a sustainable deposit product. For instance, we have a CD where if you put that money in, we commit that we will allocate that money towards sustainable investments and loans. So each year we set goals for how much we anticipate in growth towards the following year. And all that rolls up to the balanced scorecard item for a single sustainability goal as a target. And so each year that comes within. So for instance, if you look at our sustainable CD, right now we have about $83 million in that bucket. So then we look at where all the rest of the money goes. And if you take, for instance, solar loan participations that we've purchased, we have about $28 million worth. Then that's followed by green auto loans. That's about, I think, $8 million. And then we also have solar panel loans that we worked with a third party, not Mosaic, but another, where we had an indirect relationship at one point, and it scales down from there. So we'd like to keep the transparency both internally and then externally towards our impact report. And Jamie, I know you do a lot as far as tracking our sustainable products campaigns.
That's right. So on the product marketing front, we track typical marketing measurements such as email open rate, impressions, number of people going onto our social media channels, clicks, all that fun stuff. But more importantly, we track the application and the quality of the application coming into our pipeline. Does the individual have a higher propensity to be approved for the loan that we're actually promoting to them through our campaigns or not? If not, of course, we wouldn't include them in the target messaging. I just want to jump back to Laurie's point. One of our goals as well, when it comes to a single service household, ideally that's not, the ideal member for us, right? We want to deepen the relationship, and how we do that is cross promotion. So we use a lot of data to identify the target audience we're going into. So if somebody is interested in the Impact CD that Eric mentioned, and they open up an Impact CD, they're highly likely to be, interested in another green product, maybe the EV hybrid auto loan, where we offer a 25 basis point rate reduction on the loan. And then we take it a step further. Are they interested in our sustainable impact mortgage, where we have a cash closing incentive and we have a lower down payment requirement? So we try to create that stickiness with the member and make them a multi-product household.
All right, and heading back to Dan, so who has been your target market for green lending? I'm guessing it's young members. Is it young members, and is it only young members or newcomers?
So up to this point, for the last dozen years or so, our target has been typically pretty high credit tier members. Really looking for those who own their own homes, who want to add solar either on the rooftop or a pergola in the back, maybe a couple of Tesla Powerwalls in the garage, other things that will really maximize the benefits of solar. Typically, it's going to be a double income family, and again, very good credit. Our loan loss rates have been very, very good. These are assets, unlike a lot of other things that we buy, these assets actually reduce the expense on the utility side, which then frees up income to be used for payments on the loan side. So in the past, that's really what we've focused on. Now that we've joined Harborstone Credit Union, though, we're really looking at changing that focus. I shouldn't say changing it completely, but adding to that focus to include low to moderate income folks who would especially benefit from locking in their utility rates. Once you put that solar array on your roof and are able to lower your rate, you're getting a certain amount of power. And right now, I guess here in Quebec, you're paying maybe 5 to 7 cents per kilowatt hour. I mean, it's not very much. In Washington State, because of our hydroelectric power, which by the way comes from the Columbia River, which by the way originates in British Columbia. But anyway, we're very grateful for that. So we're about 3 times that, So not as efficient. But in Hawaii, it's 40 cents. So to be able to lock that in, and then regardless of what happens in labor contracts or infrastructure build or whatever, you've locked that in to a monthly payment. That's so valuable especially for somebody who's in a low to moderate income bracket.
Yeah, and it gives you a certain advantage to reinvest or to do something else, right? If you can get that locked in.
Yeah, if you can't move to Montreal, then you might want to put solar on your roof. And also not just those who own their own homes, but we're looking at things like arrangements for landlords to have solar on their lawns with an understanding and a commitment that cost savings will be passed through, or if it's already passed through with direct billing to the tenant, then they'll see their benefit that way.
Thanks, Dan. So as we're slowly coming to an end, we will be taking questions from the audience. So I'm just letting you know, please think of your questions and I'll get back to you in a few moments. But before we do that, so all of you represent organizations that live by cooperative values, participation, education, and community. So how do these principles strengthen your approach to sustainability and help you here, help me out, Laurie. Differentiate, thank you. Yourselves from traditional financial institutions, if you got that question right, please. Okay, I'll say it again. So how? No, we got it. You got it? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Want to start, Jenny? Okay. So I mean, as been noted by my colleagues earlier this morning, I mean, when we talk about the need for sustainability and our targets for sustainability coming from the top from our board, our members have that expectation too. I mean, as members of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, it's definitely an advantage to us, not only because it's our main segment, but because everything that we do, we work to deliver what they're looking for. And sustainability is definitely an important part of that.
Jamie?
Yeah, I would just add on to that, going back to the core values of the institution. Again, it's ingrained in our DNA at UNFCU, one of the core values being practicing sustainability. And that's not only internal, but external, the stakeholders we deal with. you know, when we onboard vendors, or even when we're sourcing vendors, we do have an agreement too with the vendors that they also have to practice sustainability measures. So it's really ingrained in what we do every day in the operations at UNFCU.
Laurie, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this in our prep call, but really the idea that what we do can lift all boats, right? So it's really important to think about the idea that we're providing this type of program, loan products, to help the organization to be able to be sustainable, to provide more loan products and better rates and, you know, better terms, and include those people that are underserved and underrepresented in the clean energy transition. You know, that idea that, well, yeah, I mean, it's easy to do these loans for people that are high credit and high income, double income, and they look great all the time on paper, and they have discretionary income to be able to do this type of investment. But there's people that are trying to figure out how to buy groceries next week and how to put gas in their car, and those are all of our members too. So I think about that sustainability piece and the people helping people, you know, really seriously. You know, this is for everybody. And whether we look in, you know, we're looking into doing the new portable storage you know, Utah just passed a law where they can do balcony storage. So renters can, and people that aren't traditional homeowners can really take advantage of trying something for themselves that they can afford, and be part of that and feel that ownership that makes you proud to be able to take part in this. And one thing leads to another. You know, maybe that'll put them in a position to buy an EV at some point. So really, that's what we think of when we think about that idea of sustainability, both, you know, internally as was mentioned, and, you know, for our members.
Anything to add, Dan?
Yeah, from the cooperative, yeah, I'm sorry. From the cooperative standpoint, I love the fact that you're buying these loans. You're not in a position really to originate them that much, right? But you're buying them. So those who have made decisions to originate have a market that they can share with, and we can each have claim of doing good for the same member and for the same loan. I love the opportunity that we have to do something good through the products and services that we offer. So a lot of us have many outreaches that we do to different not-profit organizations or governmental organizations that help people, that helps them a lot. But to be able to have a product that helps people, to really do what we do best in our credit union, I think is just a win-win situation.
For sure. Now I'm turning to you. So I don't know. Oh, we have a mic. Perfect. I was wondering. I was going to get out there. So don't be shy. We already have someone. Perfect. And maybe introduce yourself. I know that you guys probably know each other, but I don't. So introduce yourself and maybe to whom you want to.
Yeah, my name's Carlene Frimmer. This is a bit of a pivot. Fast fashion. It's a global crisis. There's massive negative impacts up and down the supply chain. I'm curious, what, if any, products or programs or initiatives do you have to support local textile manufacturing, slow fashion, upcycling, even clothing swaps, anything around that area?
Anyone wants to jump in, answer?
Well, I can say in Vermont, we don't necessarily at the credit union, but Vermont's a very, I guess, thrifty area. I mean, there are, we really don't have we don't have tons of retail, like big retail in Vermont. We have little patch in Chittenden County, and the rest, I mean, a lot of it is small companies anyway. And Vermont's culture is support your neighbor. You know, you buy things from the person that makes scarves next door or at the co-op. We have a lot of food co-ops that also sell products. And we have a lot of, you know, we do have clothing swaps. We have coat swaps. The credit union in the past has collected quotes to, from our members that we could hand out as needed to community members. But I do think that's a really big problem, and I agree with you. I would love to see us even have more. We used to have a really big clothing manufacturing, like a mill, a lot of mills in Vermont that made, I think, even in my lifetime, polar fleece. I remember there being a polar fleece factory. But that's all gone now. So it would be great to figure out ways. And if anybody knows of something, I'd love to hear about it.
That's not an initiative that we've identified yet, but it's definitely a big thing.
I mean, I would say the short answer is no. The bigger issue is clearly there's an issue with the textile industry and declining jobs there, but we've seen that evolve over time with many industries. So it's not so much just about the textile industry, as you point out, which is very important, is that we're seeing this in many industries. Which I think is then where our sense of social responsibility comes in as individual credit unions. For us in particular, it's not so much based around industry, but that's where our foundation comes in. And for us, since it's closest to our members, we focus on education and empowerment for women and children, primarily in Africa, but all parts of the world.
I believe we have time for, well, thank you for your question and breaking the ice here. We have time for another question, so don't be shy. No more questions? Yes, thank you. How are you?
Hi, good. Neda Arab Shahi, I work at Inclusive. Thank you for this great panel. So I think for Laurie and for Dan, you both mentioned wanting to be able to serve a wider range of borrowers, wider range of credit scores and income levels. When I think about solar loans, what we've seen is that those selling the solar systems don't necessarily think about the income levels of the borrowers. So I'm curious how you've thought about protecting your members so that they don't get sold something that they can't afford if you're starting to go to those wider income ranges.
So Neda, thank you for your question. And as long as Neda asked the question, so Neda represents Inclusive, which is an excellent organization for those who might be interested in getting into green lending. They have a green lending program. It's a partnership with the University of New Hampshire. Our green lending operations manager is one of the assistant instructors at that. And it has been just invaluable for credit unions nationwide to participate. My understanding too is there are members of or people who have gone to that program from other countries as well. So whether you're in Canada or Puerto Rico or anywhere else in the world, it's an online course and really helps you to learn what you need to learn about being a good green lender. So what was the question? That was protecting members. Protecting members. No, it was it was reaching into those credit tiers, right?
From unscrupulous facts.
Right. So, well, we just don't do business with those who haven't gone through a vetting process. They're very, very similar to what Laurie mentioned.
Yeah, we have a vetting process too, but occasionally we see that. Unfortunately, we can't really control what they do on the front end because by the time they get to financing, who knows what they've experienced. But we obviously are not going to, approve a loan. That's not going to be in the best interest of the borrower. And we tell solar companies that our fiduciary responsibility is for the member. But training the solar vendors, quite honestly, if they're serious about doing business with us, that's pretty much what our approach is.
Thank you so much. So it's the end. I hope you had a good time and that it was insightful, those comments and that panel. So thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you, Eric, Dan, Laurie. So what stands out today is that sustainability isn't just a trend, it's a transformation in how credit unions design products, engage members, and live their values. And I'm always amazed how it goes beyond our borders here, how it goes beyond Canada. I see how the cooperative movement in Quebec evolves. I see the leadership of the Desjardins group, but now hearing from all four of you shows me how that leadership is everywhere. So thank you so much for all that. And merci à vous tous. And I hope you have a lovely day.